Good morning. Happy Friday. How do we integrate Black Lives Matter into our contemplative practice here in Hollywood? Good morning. My name is Father Frank Buckley, and I am the host of our morning meditation group, Flourishing During Challenging Times. I'm happy to say that many of the protests for Black Lives Matter came right in front of Blessed Sacrament Church on Sunset Boulevard, and I was so proud of many of the Jesuits and lay colleagues who participated in those protests in so many beautiful ways. But how do we keep this movement alive in a city that compromises that contains 8% of the population are Black? However, 34% of the Black population is living on the streets. Something is drastically wrong here. So for this morning, if you're new to the meditation group, it has three parts. First is a little inspiration. Second is the contemplative practice where we sit for 20 minutes and give this to God and just be silent. And then the third part is we end with an Ignatian examine, where we look at our life recently, our history, and notice in our experience where we might have missed God, but even more importantly, where God showed up in big and small ways. So I'm going to do something new. I'm going to try to see if I can do this from my computer. Yes. So what I would like to do for this morning for inspiration is invite us to join in an examine for racism that Father Patrick St. John has recently written, and end with a prayer against racism. My hope, my prayer is that this examine cracks our heart open a little bit to do what Ignatius would say, engage our imagination in a way to notice, to imagine how the world might be a little different. So I've never met Patrick St. Jean or Jean. However, I love this examine that I'd like to share with you today. In America Magazine, Patrick says, racism is a sin that grows year-round in the hearts of many. These seeds germinating for more than 400 years in hatred and oppression devastate the Black community each time there is a new bloom. America's epidemic of racism is slowly killing the people of God. 50 states and 18 countries have taken part in these protests. The pain and anger of the last few weeks leads us to ask, how can we work towards anti-racism in our own hearts, churches, and county? Now more than ever, I believe Ignatian spirituality is an important means to help each person who desires to live with dignity, justice, and equality, seeking God in the midst of everything. Through this examine, we will start the work of anti-racism by examining how systematic racism influences our lives and how we practice the sin of racism. In this meditation, we will analyze how our actions and privilege contribute to the destruction of the dignity and humanity of Black community in the U.S. We ask God to reveal Himself and to remove the veils from our eyes that hinder us from seeing Black people. Let us open our ears to hear their cries. Let us reflect and bring the fruit of our reflections to God. So let us begin with an awareness of God's presence. Become aware of God's presence. Sense His love and compassion. His love for creation is universal, encompassing the oppressed and marginalized. Notice God's presence, His love for creation in the Black community, especially in this moment as Black Americans cry out for justice. Ask yourself, when have I failed to notice or respond to the needs of my Black brothers and sisters? Have I turned a blind eye to racial injustice? How? Why? Is my compliance, my inaction, my sense of fear directly or indirectly contributing to maintain this structure? As we strive towards anti-racism, we must not only see God's presence in Black communities, but co-labor with our Black brothers and sisters to enact justice. Review your participation in systems of racism. Now let us review our day through the lens of racism. Review your actions and thoughts with attention to how racism or privilege manifested itself. Often our actions are guided by our own self-interest or personal biases, which can perpetuate harm. But sometimes we see injustice and choose to detach from it, saying that it's not me, it's not my fight. Inaction is complicity, and it is wrong. For example, did you turn away from the news about Black Lives Matter protests? Did you stay silent when a family member or friend said something ignorant or racist? As Christians, we must recognize that we have been living with the sin of racism for 4 centuries in our church. And in fact, we benefit directly from it. In our political system, too, power is consolidated among white people. White Americans are sheltered and protected by a system of racism and inequality that is inseparable from the laws they create. Racism is bound to the DNA of this country. Ask yourself, how have I been complicit in the suffering of my Black brothers and sisters? How have I benefited from social and systematic racism today? Think about the community you live in, the social networks to which you belong. How have Black people been excluded from those spaces? Acknowledge the rootedness of the sin of racism in your life and truly abhor your sinful tendencies, choices, actions, thoughts, decisions, oppression, and injustices against the Black community. Examine your own emotions. As you review how you have participated in racism, pay attention to your feelings. Do you feel upset, angry, or uncomfortable? Confronting white privilege and racism is challenging. Sit with this discomfort. Feel deeply the plight of your Black sisters and brothers and recognize your compliance in this suffering. Now pray for guidance. Remember, we have the opportunity for transformation through the merciful compassion of God. Look forward. The environment has a lot to do with how we interact with one another. But a proximity to Blackness is not enough to make you anti-racist. Anti-racism requires active training and continuous learning about systematic racism. Ask yourself, how can I leverage my privilege to uproot racism? How can I use my privilege to make space for Black voices and other communities of color? How can I open my heart to make room for the beautiful transformation to deeper love, which God calls us all? Amen. Thank you, Patrick, for that beautiful examine of racism. Um, I know I'm shifting things around a little bit for this morning, but it's so important that we actually began with a little examine today. We'll move into our meditation now. And at the end, Patrick wrote a beautiful little prayer called Prayer Against Racism that we will end with today. And I would also just invite you this Sunday is 11 a.m. on our Facebook page at Blessed Sacrament is our Jesuit Alumni Mass. And we are hoping to engage alumni from all over the country and the world around this Black Lives Matter. So um, let's now move into our morning meditation. If you're new to the practice, first thing we do is unplug. I will set the timer for 20 minutes so you don't have to worry about that. I'll ring the bell to begin the meditation, and I'll ring the beautiful bell to end the meditation. So, what I invite you to do is wherever you are, find a comfortable, safe space. You can lower the eyes or 3/4 closed, something that feels comfortable to you. We'll just engage a sacred word and repeat it 5 or 6 times. Do a little guided meditation and then drop down and enjoy a little deep rest. So, without further ado, let's begin. Listen, listen. The sound of the bell returns us to our true home. As always, to help with calming, to settle in, we begin with a little diaphragmatic breathing, which is breathing deeply all the way into the tummy 3 times, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Together as a community around the world, let's inhale, open mouth, exhale, bringing fresh oxygen into the brain and the body. 2 more times. Inhale and exhale. Last time. Inhale and exhale. Beautiful job, everyone. Take the attention to the body. As always, we start with the feet. Feel the soles of the feet pressed onto the green earth, our mother. And know that she may be trusted. Next, take the attention to the chair, providing support. And just reflect on where you feel a little support recently. You may be doing a little examine with God this morning, seeing something of beauty, conversation with a friend, just anywhere at all you felt a little support, and then lean into it. Beautiful. Next, take the attention to the shoulders, the place where we sometimes hold a lot of tension, anxiety. And if there's any tension, anything weighing you down this morning, just let it roll off the shoulders and let the earth, our mother, receive it. Let go, surrender, release, renew, restore. Take the attention to the heart. I invite you to place your hand on your heart and see if you can come up with something this morning for what you're grateful. Personally, I'm very grateful for Patrick's beautiful examine on racism that I have never experienced before, but it touched me in a very beautiful way. Anything at all that you're grateful for this morning, just touch your heart, place it next to your heart, and together as a community, let's breathe into that gratitude. Inhale and exhale. Beautiful. You can release the hand. Take the attention to the forehead, the area between the eyebrows, the seat of intuition, and we focus on an intention for this morning. St. Ignatius invites us to ask God for what we deeply desire. And this morning, let's not be afraid to ask God for something really great and beautiful today. And we'll seal that intention with an inhale and an exhale. Continue to breathe on your own. Take the attention to the breath. God is as close to us as this beautiful air we breathe this morning. Engage your sacred word a few times and then simply drop down to the ocean floor and enjoy a little deep rest this morning. Please continue. very gently bring your attention back to the room. If the eyes were closed, go ahead, open the eyes, start to re-engage with the world. You can circle your wrist one way, circle your wrist the other, move the shoulders a little bit, shake out anything you've been holding on to. And for the last part today, we've done the examen already, so we'll mix it up a little. One of the things I learned very early as a psychologist, that one of the main markers of good mental health is flexibility. So thank you for your flexibility today for our meditation group that focused on Black Lives Matter. We moved the usual format around a little, and we're going to move the ending around a little. But the little treat for all of you today is we're going to end. I'd love to share with you Patrick's prayer against the sin of racism. Lord, racism is a social sin that has taken root in the garden of our hearts. We need you to convert us, Lord, and purify our hearts so that we can become agents of care who walk by faith in justice, hope, love, healing, and reconciliation for your greater glory. It's time to embrace our Black brothers and sisters instead of standing by while they are continually killed by a tree we need to uproot. Racism is sinful and harmful to your creation. Guard our hearts against it and move us forward to enact change. Amen. Thank you, Patrick, for that beautiful prayer. And thank all of you for tuning in on this beautiful Friday morning. Please remember, if you're available, I would love for you to join us for our alumni mass at 11 this Sunday. I will be the presider. Father EK will be proclaiming the gospel and preaching. And then afterwards, if you'd like to join, there'll be, I believe, a little Zoom room put together looking at Father Brian Massingale's article on racism as well. So I could not be more proud of Blessed Sacrament as she embodies this Black Lives Matter in our parish in Hollywood. I am so grateful for all of you for doing the examen together with me on racism, and wish you a beautiful weekend. God bless you, and thank you for your engagement in this wonderful community.